For the first time in centuries, the internet is reshaping where we work, shop, and meet faster than trains and buses can adapt. Imagine downtowns that once pulsed at rush hour becoming quiet by mid-afternoon because remote work, instant delivery, and autonomous logistics remove the need to commute. Watch because you'll see who wins: tech hubs, suburbs, delivery platforms, and who loses: small businesses, transit budgets, and the informal social life of streets, and what real policies can stop a slow urban death. Look at Japan or Singapore, where civilian firearms are extremely rare. Public spaces feel safer, trust in shared transport is higher, and late-night trains and buses stay busy because people expect public infrastructure to work. That mentality, less fear, more civic confidence, keeps transit resilient. In contrast, places where guns and fear shape daily life often favor private cars, gated developments, and reduced night services, accelerating the shift away from shared mobility. First, to lay out the trends, the human stories, and concrete fixes, from zoning and nighttime transit to community-led safety models inspired by low-gun cultures, so you can see how cities die and how they might be saved. In a world where Starlink and VR offices allow us to work from anywhere on the planet, why would we continue to live in expensive, cramped cities like New York or Tokyo? High-bandwidth satellite internet services like Starlink and commercially available VR collaboration platforms now make high-fidelity, low-latency remote work possible from many remote corners of the globe. Teams can share 3D models, run real-time design sessions, and conduct immersive presentations without everyone being in the same office. Some companies already run virtual offices for distributed teams. Yet the technical ability to work from anywhere does not erase the economic and social logic that keeps people clustered in expensive cities such as New York or Tokyo. Agglomeration economies remain powerful. Specialized suppliers, dense labor markets, deep pools of expertise, and serendipitous encounters still favor physical proximity for innovation-intensive industries. Startups, research groups, and creative teams often rely on in-person workshops, access to shared equipment, and informal networking that are difficult to replace with pixels alone. Sectors that require hands-on facilities, wet labs, advanced manufacturing floors, hospital operating theaters, film production stages, cannot be virtualized. Access to top-tier hospitals, specialized schooling, and emergency services is typically concentrated in large metropolitan areas, and families weigh those practical considerations heavily when deciding where to live. Many people also choose cities for the cultural and social infrastructure. Museums, concert halls, restaurants, festivals, and nightlife create an ecosystem of experiences that VR can imitate but not fully substitute. Short commutes to quality childcare, the convenience of dense retail and delivery logistics, and the ability to meet mentors or clients on short notice are everyday frictions that keep value in urban residency. Places with strict civilian firearm regulations, such as Japan and the United Kingdom, offer instructive contrasts in safety and social mentality that influence urban living choices. Low levels of gun violence contribute to a public sense of safety in dense public spaces, which in turn supports thriving street life, late-night businesses, and heavy public transit use. In Tokyo, for example, the combination of rigorous firearm controls, a cultural emphasis on public order, and an extensive, punctual rail network makes dense living not only tolerable, but desirable for many. London similarly sustains high population density in central boroughs because residents feel confident walking and using transit at odd hours, and because economic opportunities in finance, law, and the arts remain concentrated there. Social mentality matters as much as measured safety. In societies where firearms are tightly controlled, norms around conflict avoidance, trust in institutions, and expectations of civility shape daily interactions. People are more willing to share public space, which makes dense neighborhoods livelier and more functional. That said, the same cultural tendencies can carry downsides. Heightened social pressure, less anonymity, and expectations of conformity can make urban life stressful for some. Countries with strict gun policies often pair those rules with strong public services and infrastructure, But individuals weighing relocation will consider whether they prefer the communal norms of a dense city or the relative anonymity and freedom of a dispersed lifestyle. Economic incentives also persist. Major financial centers retain clustering because proximity to clients, real-time decision-making, and reputational effects are difficult to duplicate remotely. Law firms, venture capital networks, and cultural institutions recruit heavily from geographic hotspots. Being on-site accelerates mentoring, serendipitous introductions, and the formation of social capital. Moreover, property markets and tax structures make cities both aspirational and investment-driven places to live. Even when broadband is available everywhere, the concentration of talent and capital in cities continues to produce outsized returns for those willing to tolerate higher rents and smaller apartments. Personal preference and lifestyle diversity explain a lot of the continued appeal of cities. Young professionals often prioritize nightlife and networking. Families prioritize schools and health services. Artists and chefs need dense audiences. The choice to stay in an expensive urban core is rarely a pure economic calculus. It mixes career strategy, social preferences, and access to services. In jurisdictions with low firearm prevalence, the perceived safety of dense, walkable neighborhoods amplifies those non-economic benefits, making city life feel not only useful but pleasurable. Remote work technologies reduce the necessity of presence for many tasks, but they do not erase the magnetic pull of cities where trust, infrastructure, and cultural life are concentrated. This is a scenario about the Great Exodus, a mass migration of people into the countryside and the wilderness. Imagine the collapse of urban real estate prices, the fate of abandoned skyscrapers, and the radical ecological transformation as global megacities begin to empty out. Remote work, improved broadband, and falling commuting needs shift population dynamics. Demand for downtown office space and dense apartments wanes, while rural properties and small towns near natural amenities see sudden pressure. Commercial vacancy climbs in central business districts when businesses embrace distributed teams, and retail footprints shrink as e-commerce continues to concentrate logistics outside city cores. As buyers and tenants leave, liability, debt burdens, and zoning mismatches force sellers to drop asking prices sharply, creating localized market collapses that ripple through municipal tax bases and public services. Steel and glass towers present complex choices. Demolition of super tall structures is technically possible, but extremely costly and environmentally disruptive. Controlled implosion is rare in dense urban fabric. Adaptive reuse becomes a pragmatic alternative. Proposals range from vertical farms stacked in former office floors, to data centers insulated from weather and intruders, to indoor rewilding projects where atriums become arboreal commons. There are precedents for radical reuse. Elevated rail lines converted into linear parks, unfinished towers repopulate as informal housing, and malls turned into fulfillment centers. But each building carries hazards such as asbestos, legacy electrical systems, and contaminated groundwater that complicate any transformation or removal. Ecology responds fast when human pressure drops. Vegetation sprouts in pavement cracks and roof gardens leap forward without daily maintenance. Pollinators find new corridors, and bird populations shift into quieter canyons of glass. The urban heat island effect diminishes as dense blocks of traffic and HVAC demand vanish, helping local microclimates cool and stormwater systems recover some capacity. Former parking lots and resurfaced plazas become permeable green space that restores soil hydrology and reduces downstream flooding. Rivers that were once diverted or polluted by industrial runoff begin to host fish and invertebrates again once point source pollution attenuates and riparian buffers regrow. Safety and mentality diverge depending on pre-existing gun cultures. In countries where private firearm sales are tightly restricted or effectively absent, such as Japan, the United Kingdom, Australia, and many European states, lower rates of gun homicide and mass shootings are well documented, and social norms emphasize cooperative problem-solving and reliance on formal law enforcement rather than armed self-defense. People in those societies are more likely to organize neighborhood watches that prioritize communication, mutual aid, and technology-enabled surveillance instead of personal armament. During a large exodus, that mentality tends to produce communal approaches to securing abandoned properties, managing resources, and mediating conflicts, though it also depends on the capacity of police and emergency services that may be stretched thin. Without widespread guns, disputes are more often resolved through non-lethal means, and civic institutions or local associations become the primary vectors of resilience. Conversely, the absence of firearms does not eliminate crime, and ungoverned spaces can still attract illegal economies or sophisticated exploiters, requiring different public safety strategies than those used in heavily armed societies. In short, high-speed internet and express delivery are already pulling services and jobs out ahead of transit, hollowing parts of our downtowns, accelerating sprawl, and amplifying inequality unless cities redesign streets, land use, and transit to catch up. We saw how digital convenience can erode casual encounters, weaken local retail, and shift power to platforms, but also how fiber, micromobility, and good policy can knit neighborhoods back together. Look at places with very tight civilian gun controls, like Japan or parts of Europe after major reforms, and you often find higher public trust, stronger norms about shared space, and much more routine use of transit and street life. Those societies don't just register fewer firearm incidents. They carry a different, everyday mentality about moving through the city. People expect safer sidewalks, quieter public spaces, and transit that's part of civic life, which makes resisting the death of the city easier. That doesn't mean gun policy alone shapes urban outcomes, but helps illustrate how safety, social norms, and infrastructure interact. If you care about the future of cities, ask yourself, do you want a place designed for packages and cars, or for people and chance connections? Share what you see on your street in the comments. Your stories help shape the solutions. If this resonated, like and subscribe. Next time we'll dive into concrete fixes, transit-first zoning, broadband equity pilots, and microurban experiments from Tokyo to Stockholm, and what they actually cost and deliver. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, and let's keep building cities that outpace the algorithms rather than being run over by them.